Now is Matti Kuittinen, Senior Advisor at the Ministry of the Environment, Finland, together with Tomas Johansson, Project Manager at the Swedish National Board of Housing, Planning, Building and Planning, and Tarja Häkkinen, the Senior Specialist in Low Carbon Building. And they are going to give a presentation on the Nordic database and present that project that is ongoing. And they are going to present how is the generic database being developed and what is the potential for Nordic collaboration in this area. So I welcome Matti, Tomas and Tarja. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maria, and warm greetings to all Nordic colleagues and friends from Finland. So let's talk a little about the development of a Nordic generic database. In this presentation, we'll be going through the following things. We will first describe the role of a generic Nordic database. Then we'll be talking about the schedule and organization of how it's going on at the moment. Then we'll be describing the contents of this database, also talking about its future development, and then taking a sneak peek inside of some of the contents of the database. And if you have any questions, just shoot them in the chat. So let's get to the role of a Nordic generic database. Well, as you have heard today, and probably also earlier, harmonization of buildings climate regulation and assessment methods is one of the mandates that the Nordic ministers have given to us, the Nordic authorities. And the database, of course, is at the very core of the technical means of reaching this harmonization. The Nordic countries are aiming at integrated market, and this also applies to the construction sector. And as there is a high Nordic climate ambition, which also applies to the construction sector, it makes perfect sense to also consider if we could benefit from a joint Nordic generic database for making more climate-proof and future-proof buildings. And this could create benefits for the industry, we hope, especially for construction companies or designers, consultants who are planning to work on multiple Nordic countries, not just in their home areas. The database is also highly important for setting and calculating the limit values for buildings' carbon footprint, as that you heard earlier today. Finland and Sweden are planning to do this, and many of other Nordic countries are also considering this. So for setting these on a normatively sound manner, we need to have a joint basis for that, and the database is one of these bases. And if we would have a joint database that would have a good quality criteria and processes for ensuring and maintaining the quality, this we hope would also improve the transparency that's so critical for making the results of life cycle assessment reliable. And finally, a common dataset for reporting buildings' climate impact is the ultimate goal. So, if we look at databases today in the Nordic countries, here is my understanding of them. And should you have any further questions, again, please consult your local authorities. So in Denmark, there is the German Ökobaudat, localized version of that in use. And the Denmark also has a very nice open tool, LCA book, which is available. We're currently working on available to one. We will also be working on predefined building elements so that a designer could have external wall or roof type as a structure type with its carbon footprint instead of having to assemble that from the pieces from the scratch. And as mentioned, we will also be working with for a joint data set with infrastructure works. So then in Iceland, they have a number of foreign databases in use, also utilizing EPD Norge and Environdeck, and there is an interest for a joint database. And I should also mention for the Finland that our case is that we have very small number of environmental product declarations or EPDs in the market, and that's why the generic database is very important for us. Then for Norway, there is a great number of EPDs through the EPD Norge, but there is no generic database. Klimagassregnskap is now closed, but the database of one-click LCA is used instead. And there are research initiatives going on, mostly through the Norsus Research Institute. And in Sweden, as said, the development of a generic database is going on. The first version should be available early next year. And this will be mandatory if EPDs can't be used. So we are linking the development in Finland and Sweden for a joint Nordic project. And the schedule can be seen here in this line. So now during this year, 2020, we are going through the development phase, and we are hoping to launch the database in early 21. Thereafter, we will have a short technical test phase during which we will mostly check that all the interfaces and technical aspects of the database are up and running. And the database will nevertheless be in use from the beginning of year 21. So despite of the technical test phase, the data will be available. And then we will launch the regular updates, and we will plan them. And most likely there will be updates to the contents of the database regularly. So then one possible future, we could extend this exercise to other Nordic countries as well. We could have joint processes for data collection and data maintenance in the database. We could have joint quality criteria and inspection mechanisms. We could have representative generic values for different Nordic countries and regions. And with all of this, we could have also ensure that there is a fluent integration to building information modeling tools, so that by the end of the day, this would be a seamless part of designing a building in a building information modeling tool. This is a vision, and I'd like to discuss this with you while we get to the roundtable discussions. But now it's over to Tomas from Boverket, please.
Thank you. So what are the conditions on development a joint Nordic database with generic values? As we heard earlier, the Nordic Council of Ministers clearly encourage Nordic harmonization. But Finland and Sweden are the first countries with legislation on climate declaration, and we has agreed on a joint work. We have a much tighter time frame compared to other Nordic countries, and we must have a database launched at January. But all the Nordic countries has, of course, an insight into the project, and we see that we will develop a Nordic joint database. The work will proceed further on. The number and the value of the indicators on in the Swedish and Finnish database will diverse. We have different extent of the life cycle, and we have a different system boundary on the building part. And we do have some differences in what data is representative for the countries. The Swedish regulation cover modules A1 to A5 of the standard EN 15978. It includes structural load-bearing components, climate screen, and interior walls. Finland has a wider scope. They include also B3, B4, B6, C1 and C4 and D. And almost everything in the building except low voltage system, interior finish, kitchen and bath appliances and yard materials. We think Sweden will have 100 to 150 data set product groups, and Finland will probably reach 200 data sets. Yeah, can change. So how do we collaborate? We have a joint work on definitions, methods, templates, on generic values indicators. So we developed that together. But as I said before, some indicators are not the same. We have a joint work on authority level as well as on consultant level. We use IVL as a consult in Sweden and Psych in Finland. We collaborate on the technical system. We look into same database structure, but we will not have a joint database on this time. But of course, as I said, we are looking for it, and with the other Nordic countries. And we have frequent meetings with the Nordic countries. So that's shortly about the collaboration, and Tarja will now tell you more about the joint work between Sweden and Finland. Thank you.
All right. In the development of the generic database, our intention is to do close collaboration, especially in defining the material groups, indicators, and values for these indicators. Also, how we define the term generic value, and in doing and describing the process for validating and updating the data. The database will cover several product groups, and the groups that are highlighted with yellow in this slide are those where we are going to work closely together, and we also try to share work as much as possible. So for insulations, metallic products, wood products, construction boards, and mineral products. Concrete products will be done both in Sweden and in Finland, but separately. Then Finland will also develop data for infra-related products, supplementary products such as doors and windows, and products related to HVAC and electrical installations. And while we focus on product database, we will also develop generic data for energy services, transportation services, and construction services. And then about the indicators, the main indicator is, of course, global warming potential. It will exclude biogenic emissions and focus on the A phase. Finland will also develop information regarding the so-called carbon handprint or negative greenhouse gas emissions. We will take into account carbon sequestration in wooden and concrete products, and also consider benefits beyond the system boundary regarding recycling of metals. And the both countries will also develop some supplementary information, such as information about loss at building site and technical service life. We have defined the generic value so that it is a basic value based on emission values of products that provide a significant share in the market. And in practice, these products are in most cases domestic or Nordic products. The generic value is based on publicly available and hopefully good quality and relevant data. And in many cases, then this means that we are going to use verified EPDs. The basic values represent what is typical and easily available in the building sector and buildings, and thus it will also provide a good basis for building authorities for calculating reference values for different kinds of buildings, so that there will be a good balance between the embodied and operational impacts. So although the reference values will be calculated with the help of basic values, also conservative values need to be used in building specific calculations when an EPD or climate declaration is not available, because we believe that this will give pressure for doing more EPDs. The conservative value is a basic value multiplied with a factor, and the factor needs to be high enough to really give pressure to do 2 EPDs, but not too high, because it should not completely miss the understanding about the relation between embodied and operational emissions. And as the main issue that affects the carbon footprint of products are the energy sources and also energy efficiency and some other things, but especially the first one means that Nordic products compared to other products are often rather good. So it also means that the database may represent some kind of rather good level of what is possible to achieve. And finally, the database will be transparent, and in addition to the emission values, a background report will be given. And the idea of this background report is that it justifies the selection and describes what data was collected. And the validation will be based really on this transparency, use of verified data, launching a database for the database for comments, and during some kind of test period, and of course, last but not least, with the help of the collaboration of the expert group. And so is it Matti who will now continue?
So there will be a set of questions to be discussed on the roundtable. I believe that we will go through them while we start the roundtables, but we are happy to have received a lot of questions in the chat. So I believe that now maybe would be a good time to start going through them. Or how do you see this, Maria?
Yes, I think that is a good idea to read out the questions from the Q&A section. So I'll start with one. Will there be elementary differences between Ökobau and a Nordic database? And if so, what potential do you see in this?
There will be some differences, of course, between ÖkoBau and the Nordic database, because Nordic conditions are different to those that led to the development of ÖkoBau data. And because we need the database for our legislation, so we need to have a control to the database and full accessibility to it all the time, and we need to be sure that it will be openly available. So therefore, it's unfortunately not possible for us to lean on to the great and very, very nice database of ÖkoBau data. And therefore, we need to have the database in national hands, so to say, because that will be used for the basis of legislation. There will be probably some technical differences to ÖkoBau data, and of course, we need to take into account that the German resources for ÖkoBau data's maintenance and development have been used for a number of years, and we are still in the beginning of our journey.
Thank you. Then there are a few questions regarding EPDs in different ways, but I think I will have one more that is not EPD related first. This is for Finland. How is B6 included at the product level? Is this limited to the operational energy of the construction product?
Yes, I believe Tarja also already mentioned this, that we are going to have information on the energy, different energy forms or energy carriers, climate impacts, and also the scenario for the decarbonization of the energy in the future. So this is what we mean by having the B6 in the database. So we need to have fixed values for district heating, district cooling, electricity, and so forth, so that everybody is using the same global warming potential factors when doing the B6 calculation in LCA.
All right, thank you. Then there's the question, why should material manufacturers invest in EPDs on specific products when a generic value are chosen because of a generic database?
Tarja, would you like to take this?
The specific manufacturer may have better values than the basic value, and if you don't have an EPD, the idea is that for those products, this conservative factor will be applied. So if you have beneficial product and you have an EPD, then you benefit from that.
All right, thank you. A database of construction products should refer to EN 1504 and not the building LCA standard EN 15804. I'm not sure I get the question, but maybe you do.
Yes,
yeah,
of course, because we are very much looking data on the basis of EPDs that have been done in accordance with standard 15804.
Yes, thank you. Has there been any thoughts on how to deal with EPD data in the light of the differences in information for EN 15804 with Annex 2013 and EN 15804 and Annex 2 2019 compliant EPDs?
We will make use really about of EPDs, and currently most of those have been done in accordance with the older version of the standard. But at this stage, we will actually just not take into account the differences. The main differences are about, like, for example, how do you assess and report biogenic carbon emissions, and those will not be included when you tell the value for global warming potential, so that doesn't have an effect. But there are also different factors that are used in calculating the global warming potential value, and that will have a small effect, but not so much when you are speaking about fossil emissions, because the value that has changed most is the value factor for methane.
And just a very small clarification in addition to this. So in the generic database, we are not planning to have any EPDs in the database. There are EPD operators on the market who are having very good databases for this purpose. And it's not the government's purpose to establish another EPD platform.
Yeah, thank you.